Hi, this is Mitchell Levy, Thought Leader Architect, and I'm very excited about what we've been doing here at the Alpha Conference, the people I'm meeting, and it all stems back to 4 women who started the Women of Alpha. And I thought I would just let Toni Ricardi introduce herself and one of the missing members. And then we can go from there. We'll start asking questions. So we should have a fun time and learn more about how this started, where it's going, and where we see it going.
Great, thanks, Mitchell. 14 years ago, I was then the Chief Diversity Officer for PricewaterhouseCoopers, their first, a member of the U.S. Management Committee, and I came to my first, I guess 15 years ago, my first Alpha conference. 400 people, I was taken. And after that, I retired from PricewaterhouseCoopers 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Took some time off to play and then became the Chief Diversity Officer and Head of HR for the Conference Board, and I'm now currently a Senior Fellow for the Conference Board. 14 years ago, another person who joined us who is not here was Rosemary Rodriguez, who was, at that time, elected as the chairwoman of Alpha. Very exciting because there hadn't been a female chair, only one other time in our history, and it had been a long time. She was with EY. She is now, I believe, living in California and couldn't be with us.
Right. My name is Maria Villanueva Sessions. I've been a member of Alpha for many years. Originally Chicago. Started with an organization called Midwest Association of Hispanic Accountants, which I reached out to the American Association of Hispanic CPAs.
AKA Alpha.
Yes, and we started the conversation about bringing MAHA into AHCPA, and that deal was closed in May of 2000, which was very exciting. It was my first conference in '99 in Houston. But anyways, that's the beginning of my involvement. Like Toni said, we started 14 years ago with the idea of the Women of Alpha, but I've started in public accounting, and I've moved outside of that into anti-corruption compliance, mainly for healthcare companies. I have a passion for healthcare and being healthy, and so
Don't we all?
right, and so that fits into my mission, and I love to spread the word and do the right thing. So the job is just perfect. So yes, and I am happy to be here today.
Great. And who is the 4th member?
The 4th person is Frances Garcia, an amazing woman that a lot of us know. I met her, I actually saw her once speak when I was a student, as she was a keynote in Chicago. And when I became president of the chapter, I wanted to bring her back. So I wrote a letter, sent it via fax to the Inspector General Office of the General Accountability Office. And she found out who's this Maria, and because she used to be involved with AHCPA, she was the first female president of AHCPA, and so she did a little bit of research on me, and she decided to come and speak for us, and she wasn't going to charge any of the costs for coming to Chicago. Anyways, she's an amazing woman. She's a connector. She's now to me family, like many of my Alpha Familia members are, and it's an amazing thing. But she had to leave. She had a family conflict, so that's why she's not here.
Yeah, well, we're here with the Women of Alpha Strategy Committee. And you have done an amazing job. So I've seen the breakfast this morning. I've seen the lunchtime with 2,000 people today, an amazing program. And so I always ask, and we should ask the founders, so you've seen where the Women of Alpha program have gone since you've started. Is it where you want it to be? What are you super proud? Do you want more? What are you thinking?
Well, no, it's not yet where I want it to be, but I'll start with what I'm proud of, which is that we've come such a long way. From our first meeting, which was 14 women, focused on work life, leaders, all leaders, that's all we had at that time, in a closed room for breakfast that PwC funded, to now when we have 2,000 people to lunch. That's amazing. when we have programs at every chapter. That's amazing. What I'm waiting for is the time when every session, every panel will have both men and women without our having to think about it. It'll be natural that we're inclusive, both for the Women of Alpha panels, but also for every panel, every power breakfast, everything else. Then I'll feel like we've really come a long way because it'll be part of our DNA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to that? I like the inclusivity. We should definitely talk about that. But
Right, so I think, I agree with Toni. I think we've accomplished a lot, and I say we, but these ladies here have been involved for many years, and so have other people that are not here. They have been in the past years, and 14 years is such a long time. So there have been many people making this Women of Alpha program happening. I think, yes, I think we've accomplished a lot, and the vision early on, I would be frustrated at times because we couldn't, there was so much demand in the chapter. We want to go on a Women of Alpha program, and I wish we could give them all the tools, like a book of, here's the Women of Alpha program with a list of speakers and everything. And I was frustrated many times because we couldn't offer that. And so then everybody had to start from scratch and create their own program, which made it more difficult to execute. So that's, I think that we could have accelerated our growth, but I think we're in a good place and we should just move forward.
I personally am
That's
very
the only
proud
thing
of
we can
what I've been
control.
able to see. So I think everyone here has done a great job. Do you have questions that you'd like to ask?
I have one. So one of the goals of Women of Alpha is to offer professional development and exposure to senior leaders via mentoring. So knowing what you know now and where Women of Alpha has come from, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from the first mentorship program launched, and what do you think the key components will be to creating and delivering successful mentorship programs going forward?
So just to repeat, because I don't know if it was loud enough, it was regarding mentoring, and what was the biggest takeaway and what needs to be repeated from an ongoing mentoring perspective? Thank you.
I think, well, I can start and then Toni, you can complement. I think there was one mentoring opportunity where we CAB members paired up with some of the members, and I thought I really enjoyed my mentee. I think we could do a lot more. And I also think, personally, I think a lot of people would benefit more from a coach relationship, and we need to figure out what that would be. I did hire a coach a couple of years ago, and it was great. I've had mentors. I can always reach out to mentors, but a coach just really keeps you on track as to your goals and things that you need to work on, that fine tune. So it's more targeted, it's more focused, and it may be something that would accelerate the growth and professional growth of women. That would be something I would recommend. But the mentorship is great. I think both programs, but I think the coaching is something that women should consider more. It's an investment.
That's good? You want to add to that?
That's good.
Perfect, well done. By the way, I'm coming from Silicon Valley, and so we use TLAs, 3-letter acronyms all the time. So CAD is Corporate Advisory Board. Do we have another?
Yes, I have one. Mine is a two-part question. Given the success you have achieved as a leader within Alpha organization and in your professional career, what advice can you offer to women who have interest in pursuing leadership roles, and what is one lesson you have learned from your leadership experience?
I would.
Don't seem loud enough. No, please. I was looking at the volumes and say, hey, do we have enough? Nicely done, thank you.
I think the biggest thing I would say is you can't achieve without taking risks. So be willing to take risks. Understand that you should be networking with everyone. I mean, people on the bus, people at the department store, wherever, because you never know where that contact will lead you. I think it's very important to ask for assignments that you want, because if you wait for someone to assign you to the best project or the best opportunity, it may pass by without your knowing about it. So aggressively manage your career, network, take risks, and just be out there and open to possibilities.
Right. A few things I would add, I couldn't agree with Toni more. Listen to feedback and reach out for feedback. I've been given tough feedback at times, and when I comment with my colleagues, and I'll give an example, everybody knows, possibly that knows me knows this. I was told once, I had a great manager once, but he was brutally honest. One of the things he said to me, he's like, well, one of the few comments, maybe you need drug screening because you're laughing all the time, right? And so it was just at the lunch cafeteria, so it was great. But then we had, I got a promotion, and I was going to support a corporate officer in his business in a compliance role. And he says, you're going to have to change your laughter, because this is serious people, and you're going to appear to be a silly person. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, okay, thanks. And I commented that, and some people are like, well, that's you. You can't change who you are. And I was sharing with Toni earlier that that's the perception of you, and that's the feedback, right? So you cannot change who you are, but maybe you can lower the volume of the laughter. Maybe you can just be aware, right? And I think once I got to that business and I got to know everybody loved laughter. And then I made that comment, and they said, oh, we love you to laugh. We want you to laugh all the time. But the guy, the actual head of the business, he was more on the serious side. So, you adjust your behavior based on your audience, just like you adjust your communication skills based on your audience. And that feedback is a gift, and you have to accept it, and you have to not take it like a personal attack, because that guy that I work for never meant it as that. And the other one is follow your passion. Long time ago, when I was in Mexico, where I grew up, somebody told me, no one is going to do what you have to do. You have a mission. There's no one else. If you don't do that, nobody's going to do it. You have to do it. So follow that passion. And I think somebody said to me once you figure out your mission in life becomes a lot easier. And I think that's true. And sometimes you just wander around, and then you figure it out, and the light goes on, and it's easier. So those are the two things I would add. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice. Do we have another question?
Hi, I do. My name's Emily, and I'm really excited to be here with you, Legacy Women of ALPFA. My question for you is a little similar to your first original question when you kicked it off. So I'm going to kind of try to reword it. You have gifted us with an incredible legacy as we continue to carry the torch of Women of ALPFA forward. So my question is going to be then now, what would you like to see us, the Women of ALPFA Strategic Development Committee, accomplish in the near future?
That's a great question. Well said.
I would say that I would like you to put together a solid offering of programs from which women can benefit. And I mean every level of the organization. I would like you to constantly question when you see things that you think are not benefiting men and women equally. And finally, I'd like you to use the experience to, I'm just trying to find the word here, to advance yourselves, because your value as role models is just as incredible as the work you do in the organization.
Great, thank you.
And actually, I see that on all the programs I'm seeing today is the value of the role model, right? It's let's be yourself, be who you are, show who you are, and because you're successful and living the world, other people will follow that. And that's one of my aha moments are the family orientation, the role model orientation. I'm finding all that. And this is the second time, Toni, you mentioned the inclusion component, right? And a lot of times when you think of an organization, you think, oh, well, I'm not a woman, I can't be part of the Women of Alpha, right? But that's not clearly the.
Absolutely not. I believe that it's actually at the intersection of our differences that we have the greatest strength. So if we can't get things on the table and talk to people who are not like us, we're never going to understand their perceptions, and we're not going to ever be able to communicate ours.
Yeah, the other thing I would add is reach out to people that have been involved, you would be surprised how willing we are to help again in any way that we can. So even though people have moved on and it's just not me, other people, there's that willing and there's that flatterness when you reach out again and say, hey, you want to come and help us with this local chapter event? And there's a compliment, just like your question was very complimentary to us, and I thank you for that. But there's a compliment when you ask somebody to help with something. So just keep that in mind as you guys develop something. When you are scrambling for help, there are a lot of people that want to help.
That is good to know. Thank you.
Do you mind if I just want to slip in one small question, and that is, could you just tell me a little bit about the history? Like how did this happen? How did the four of you sort of come together and say, we need this?
Well, I think we each may have had different motivations. So what I observed when I became part of the CAB many, many years ago was that all the chapter leaders, or 99% of the chapter leaders, were men. 99% of the chapter workers were female. And so I didn't see women in leadership roles other than Rosemary, very few. And so we said, let's get the group of leaders who are here together to talk about it. And so we hosted a breakfast. As I said, 14 people, it was mostly about work life. We then did some interviews with women at the chapter level to say, why aren't you thinking about leadership? And many of them were not. They were waiting to be asked. They felt like they had too much to do. Their responses were different from what we perceived to be the sponsors of men. So it was kind of that motivation that there's a great deal of knowledge and wealth that is not getting shared, and a great amount of leadership we're missing out on.
Right, and that was my struggle. At the time, I was a chapter president for Chicago, and I was chapter president for 3 years, and I'm like, I need to get out of this role. And I had a great team of people, and actually mixed women and men, and they all pulled their weight. It takes time when you have a group of volunteers to find the right match, but this was my opinion, high-performing team. But when I tried to step away and I wanted to move to the national board, and I asked everybody, well, who's going to succeed me? They're like, well, we'll stay on if you stay on. But nobody wanted to step up to that role, and especially the ladies. I'm like, and I was like forcing them, trying to bribe them or trying to do something for them to, I'll stick around. And then that was also not good. But that was part of the thing. When you talk to the leaders, the people that were doing a lot of the work in the chapters, like Toni said, why don't you run? Oh, it's too much work. Oh, I can't do it. And I'm like, you can do it. And I just didn't understand why they thought like that. And so that's when we started talking. We should have a women's group to work with them on. And when we started the first breakfast we had, after that, I think Rosemary set up meetings with most of the female members, eat small groups, and she would ask them questions. It was a chat with Rosemary type thing. I was part of that, and it was the encouragement and the one-on-one dialogue and trying to figure out how we can get these women to step up. They could do it. They were doing it already. They just needed to take that next step and believe that they could. I think in my experience, I also felt as a board member, I was on the chapter board, which I was invited to board meetings because of that. This is a long time ago, right? So things work differently. But it was Rosemary and I, and then everybody else was a male representative, either a board member or a chapter representative. And it was, there were some differences in just how we communicated. It felt like a family, but I felt like the niece. I didn't feel like a peer. And so in communicating, it was like, okay, I need help getting through these people. So partly was how do we get the woman to lead, to become leaders and take those roles, and then how do I communicate with all these guys? Is a group of passionate guys that were just, hey, where's my niece? You know, it was a different type of, it wasn't peer to peer. So I think there was some other motivations.
Oh, interesting. How about another question from? We're almost there. We're almost ready. we're finding it.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
So there are many women organizations these days. How do you think Women of Alpha measures up against them? And what do you think makes us unique from those other women initiatives?
So I'm only going to repeat that because we had a siren.
New York
Of
City.
course, just from New York City. What do you expect, right? So the short question, there are many women organizations. How does the Women of Alpha actually compare in relation to a number of other?
I think the secret sauce is the Alpha Familia. It is the most welcoming organization I think I've ever been a part of. Genuine caring, genuine sharing, and just joy in being together. And I think that's what makes Alpha and Women of Alpha, but the whole Alpha organization.
Right, that's a distinguishing factor. I do think that we should collaborate with those organizations. I think that it's a mistake to see the organizations that are trying to do what we do, to see them as competition. I think we're all trying to make a change in America and help women. So I think we should be inclusive in that. Collaborate, yeah, and see them as collaborators. And yes, we do have an organization to run. And I love that you said that, because we are inclusive. That's one. Initially, I don't know if it's still in the brochures and everything, but inclusiveness was one of our core values. So that is, and that's what people have always said about Alpha. It's hard for me to say it because I've been involved for so long that, yeah, we're inclusive, of course, but I don't know, people that they given that feedback coming in and getting involved, they have always said that. And so I think that's the difference with other organizations. I agree.
It's easy for me to say it because I'm Italian and not a Latino. Not a Latino. So I know that you're inclusive because you've given me the chance to lead and love in this organization.
Yeehaw. Other I was going to pat you on the back and say, I love your comment. Well, I didn't want you to feel like a niece, so. But I love
That's
the
okay.
comment of inclusiveness of you not really in competition with other organizations and associations. And I would bet, based on some of the things that Charlie, the executive director, is doing, that going out and reaching out, maybe this group going out and reaching out to other organizations specifically tailored at women and trying to leverage might be a really good, that's a great question, because it brought up a very interesting response.
And I think we made a good start with Catalyst, who's been on the Women of Alpha
Right.
board. Right, Catalyst, an organization been around for more than 30 years, focused on women's advancement. So that's just one example.
Right.
Nice. How are we doing?
Good. So my question is, I led a chapter and I know how difficult and challenging it can be to implement and execute programs. So what were the challenges and obstacles that you guys faced when you were starting Women of Alpha and trying to implement change? So, and what did you do?
I think one challenge was just the convention has been traditionally the place where we delivered the greatest value, because that's what we had going. It was just a challenge to get time on the program in the beginning, or to be seen as something that others would want to participate in. And then the challenge was just being a chapter leader, volunteers don't have a ton of time. I mean, they have jobs, they have families, they have everything going on. So as Maria said earlier, we wanted to put together cohesive programs that could be shared across the organization, but that takes time.
Right.
So those are two things I would say. What do you think, Maria?
Right. I agree, and we talked about this earlier. There were a few other comments. Sometimes the male some of the male board members were like, well, I thought we just finished with our core values and one of them is inclusiveness. How is this inclusive? And so we're like, well, but we need to do it because we don't have, and so it was a good question. And it was, I think we now, with the first breakfast, there were no males invited. And so that's maybe what prompted that comment, right? Hey, I want to be part of that. And why can't I? And we explained we're trying to expand the leadership. We're trying to get more women to step up and take those roles. And so I think once we opened it up and had programs, and the men were very interested in some of the programs, but most of the big programs were at the convention. I think they started to see the value, and they started to see that they were learning too. We had an author from a friend of Toni's that wrote Pitch Like a Girl, the book. And she had, right, and everybody loved the session. It was a lot of men in that session. And it was, she had us, I mean, she was very good. But the men walking out of that session, they felt like enlightened. And actually, some of the men found out they were a lot like a woman. So they learned a few skills, a few communication differences that they could tweak a little bit. So then I think once we show the value, there's value for both groups. Not everybody, not all women are the same, right? Some of us are more like guys sometimes. And some guys are sensitive, sometimes they're more like women. So you can't generalize, but when you have the message, there may be a message for everybody. There may be learning for everybody. And I think now that it's expanded and it's inclusive for men and women, but with the focus on women, because we do have that gap, right? Where we're not in the boards of directors, we're not in the executive management team. So we still need to work on that. But it's because inclusiveness that we're trying to get caught up to the extent that's possible.
I find this whole fascinating, and actually feeling like I'm included is very warm, feels very good for me personally. Love this conversation. I have a number of aha moments that I've taken away just listening to the two of you, but I'm curious, were there some aha moments that you heard that was interesting, something that you want to share?
I would like to share. My aha moment was when Toni shared, number one, that she feels like we are an inclusive group, and that's what makes us kind of unique, and also that we have that family culture, and that, even though she's Italian, which I had no idea, that she felt like she was part of the familia, and that we made you feel welcome. And I'm sure till today you probably don't even feel like you're an outsider. There you go.
She's not right now.
Or you got one you want to share?
This morning, I got a phone call as I was getting ready to come downstairs with somebody who was interested in attending the Women of ALPFA Day, but he wasn't sure if it was for him. Was there any other program outside of that? And I said, the interesting thing about the Women of ALPFA programming is that, for example, Alejandro Angel in Nashville said the same thing. Last year he attended and he found value in it for him as well. And I said, with the focus based on things that are of concern to women and to the advancement of women in their careers and their leadership roles and in including them in society, when men come to the table as well, we all learn together not only how to be better professionals as a whole, but also how we are different and how we work together to make it more inclusive without it being inauthentic, right? I can promote you because of the work that you do, the value that you bring, not because you're a man or a woman or black or white or anything else. And then when I was live streaming, we were live streaming the luncheon this afternoon, and I was sitting with the gentleman in the live stream booth, and he said that it was pretty insightful for him to sit and watch that whole experience. And he thought about advancement for his daughter a little bit differently, and about, things that his wife has come back and told him about that he didn't really have a concept for. But after listening to Nina Vaca at the interview, he said, now I have a context for what she was saying and why that was a concern for her. So I think that illuminating each other and raising the awareness of what does help is pretty cool. And that final thought is that he said it's really interesting that all of the women who are like Nina Vaca, who are advancing and who are becoming leaders, are very, he said it differently, but in essence, emotionally intelligent. They're very warm and caring and nurturing. And he said, I wonder if that has something to do with it. And I said, absolutely it does. Because if the boardroom is full of men, they see a strong woman with great credentials come up and feel that what she has is a value that is missing, that she can bring to the table that they don't have. So it's imperative to have that cross-cultural agility and to recognize everybody's value, even if it's different than what we have to offer.
Nice. Well said. Is there anyone else who has a comment or wants to add something?
I wanted to add one last thing. Considering all the corporate partners that have backed up Women of Alpha and has stand behind Women of Alpha for so many years, those that are staying behind, that are not putting a foot forward, what would you say to them?
I would say, look at the demographics. Understand where the spending lies. Understand who your hires are going to be because of the pool you're hiring from. And if you're not at the table, you're not getting the best quality talent.
Nice. So based on this conversation, based on the questions, is there one final comment that either you, if you want to start, that you would like to make to share? What didn't we ask, or what should we have asked, or what do you think the future, whatever you think the final comment should be?
Oh my. Well, so I started thinking about this. I mean, there's so many things, right, to think about and reflect. I mentioned earlier in one of our panels that I was part of, that never underestimate the voice that you have and the power of that. And we need to promote ourselves to carry that message, and we can carry that message to whomever. Don't think they're VPs and I'm not, or this is a president and I'm not. You'll be surprised. They will listen, and they will remember you, and then they will ask you to help, and just be ready for that help. But we cannot underestimate the power that our voice has, and the impact we can have in driving change and making a difference. And I know you all are here because you're making a difference every day. But for the viewers, that's something that I think is very important to remember. Speak up and don't just follow along if you don't agree. Take a stand and make some noise. Get disturbed to make a difference.
And I would say,
By the way, beautifully said. Thank you.
I am at the end of my career, nearing the end of my career, and I would say, make waves, make a difference, enjoy it because it goes like that.
Nice, very well said. Hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. Absolutely fabulous. We'll see you on the next episode. I love what you ladies are doing and have been able to do, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more exciting stuff from what you're gonna do.
All right.
Thank you very much. We'll see you the next time.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.